You were a part of the legal action against the FCC decades ago, which was very similar to what we were doing, but that was when they first set the limits. And the second thing that I would love to hear about is the International EMF Scientist Appeal. And to tell us more about that, because I know that you coordinate that as well. Maybe start with your legal appeal decades ago in 1999?
1998. Yeah, 1998.
Eight.
Yeah, how I got into this issue directly was I have a public health background. I already knew that I was kind of sensitive to EMF because I had a couple of experiences with that. But in 1996, they were going to put a cell tower on my church, and my son went to preschool there. And I said, now, wait a minute, don't put that up. We need to look into this. And they said, it's fine. You know, everything's fine. I said, no, we don't know that. So we held a hearing, met with Sprint. And then I realized that there was a federal law that had just passed that said, the Federal Telecom Act passed that said, no state or instrumentality can deny a permit to site an antenna based on environmental concerns, which means health. And I said, okay, wait a minute, that's unconstitutional. There's something going terribly wrong here. So I committed myself to working on this issue because I realized that there's something up. Something is happening. I didn't know what it was, but I needed to stick with this. And I'm glad I have. Yeah, it's been a lot of work, but I've seen change. I'm optimistic about the changes that we have made and will be making, and I'm still in. And so that's it. But that resulted in my being a leader in challenging the FCC in federal court 2 years later. We filed an appeal to the U.S. Court of Appeals, having commented on earlier rulemaking. And suddenly I got to know 58 other people across the country had done the same thing. And we formed an organization, filed our appeal. 2 other groups filed appeals. It was interesting. 2 other groups. One was run by Arthur Furstenberg, Cellular Phone Task Force, on behalf of 28 people who are electrically sensitive, including himself. The other one was led by the president, Morton Bear, of the Communications Workers of America, because his workers and the IBEU of electrical workers, the other union, they joined together to make this appeal because it's the occupational studies on workers that have been forthcoming for decades that show that workers are more highly exposed than the general population. And there are already other studies dating back to the naval personnel on shipboards in 1930 showing harm from military radar, up to today showing harm to workers on rooftops operating antennas. So we were glad to work with the Communications Workers of America on that. Well, our case was denied by the appellate court level. We appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. Our cases were all put together, and we were represented by the lawyer we had hired, James Hobson. He was what the company now known as Best and Kreider, who's very active on this issue still. Well, we appealed to the Supreme Court with Whitney North Seymour Jr., who used to be a New York State legislator and co-founder of the Natural Resources Defense Council. And we lost on that appeal. They denied our writ for certiori. So here we are again now, looking at what Deborah Davis and Theodore are doing through the Environmental Health Trust, and also correspondingly, the Children's Defense Fund is doing. They're also filing an appeal. Those 2 appeals have been conjoined. So they're going after the same results that we did, and that is to challenge the adequacy of the radio frequency human health exposure guidelines that the FCC continues to maintain is safe, continues to ignore the fact that there is new science that needs to be reviewed and considered. In fact, they recently decided they would not alter the FCC rules because there was no reason to. There was no credible evidence to show harm yet, in spite of these 2 new studies. So they were just going to incorporate by reference the new 5G frequencies and exposure conditions, which are completely different.